Welcome to Game Changers with Molly Fletcher, where we take you behind the scenes with peak performers to learn what makes them tick and discover how you can apply their lessons to your life. I'm your host, Molly Fletcher. One of the greatest point guards in basketball, Sue Bird has won 5 Olympic gold medals, 4 WNBA championships, 4 world championships, and 2 NCAA championships. That's a lot of winning. The 12-time WNBA All-Star and all-time assist leader recently re-signed with the Seattle Storm in what is expected to be her final season. Off the court, Sue and her fiancé, soccer star Megan Rapinoe, are fierce advocates of equality. Sue is the co-founder of TOGETHXR, a media company that elevates and centers women through storytelling. She also serves as a basketball analyst for ESPN and has worked in the front office for the NBA's Denver Nuggets. In our conversation today, Sue shares what it takes, and she knows it, to sustain success at the highest level for over 3 decades. We talk about mental toughness, keeping your competitive edge, and the legacy she's leaving behind to inspire the next generation. Talk about a game changer. Here's my conversation with Sue Bird. We just covered your intro, and you've won a lot, right, in your career at every level. What motivates you to wake up every day and want to get better, right? How do you maintain that level of drive when you've achieved so much?
One big part of it is I'm addicted to winning. There's like something about the winning that it gets me up. It's like, I want to achieve it. And, something that people don't talk about a lot is when you do hoist the trophy, when you do get the medal put on your neck, it's actually a short-term high that you're getting because it's like it only lasts so long. And then you got to start all over again. So where I have really what really motivates me, what I've really kind of started to fall in love with is, yes, the winning is great. Of course, that's the end goal. But it's always the process and the journey to get to that. Like that is where, that's where it all lies for me. And, every team you're on, every winning team you're on, it's different. It's unique. You've had ups, downs, lefts, rights. Like you got to figure it out. And in that figuring it out, you come together as a team. You develop this bond. There's just so much that goes on in that journey. That's really, I think, for me, when I get out of bed every day, like that's what excites me. Knowing that I'm going to go to work that day. It's going to be something I cannot predict. And how are we all going to handle it in order to get to that place where we are hoisting the trophy?
Yeah, no, it's not about the drive to achieve. It's about the drive to get better, right? The journey. Why do you think, Sue, you've been able to sustain success for so long?
No, sustaining the excellence and the winning. Again, I think some of it is kind of like being addicted to that whole process. Some of it is maybe a little bit of luck. Like I really believe that athletes do have a little bit of luck throughout their career. And some of it is like, I'm just really competitive. I've been competitive my whole life. I joke that, whether I'm on the basketball court, whether I'm playing cards with my friends, in college, we used to play Bop It all the time. It was very popular back then. And we would all be like psychopaths trying to win Bop It. And it's just like, it's just always there, that competitive part. I've actually, in my older age, tried to tone it down socially because I feel like my friends had enough. But for the most part, it's just always kind of lurking underneath.
Well, and you talked about too how before we went live, right? How you love, you're good at multitasking. I mean, you can have a couple things coming at you at the same time, and you manage it well. I mean, at some level, do you think that you have a high capacity, right? Which I've seen in great athletes. I mean, you have a high capacity, obviously tremendous discipline, but you have an ability to take on a lot of demands and still execute.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So if Megan were in this conversation, this is what she would say. She's like, I wish I had this quality. I'm like, yeah, me too. Because I'm like the multitasker in the house. Like I'm the logistics. I think another part of what I do in terms of my basketball life, like sustaining that excellence, is I figured out kind of how to compartmentalize different emotions at different times. So when I don't know, something's getting hard or I'm not in the mood, I don't feel like it, I kind of have figured out how to like know when to honor that feeling and sometimes when to like push it to the side, to get through the workout, to get through whatever difficulty is facing me because I know on the other side it's going to feel good when I get it done. Like once you get to that other side, it's going to feel really good when you get it done. So I think yeah, the multitasking of emotions, the compartmentalization at times, that's allowed me to because listen, there's a lot of highs and lows. There's a lot of like emotional roller coasters that you really have to like train yourself and learn and figure out what works for you on how to get off them.
Mhm. Right. Well, it sounds like you've done a good job of balancing, being gentle on yourself with the grind.
Yeah, no, the grind is tough. I joke that like I don't necessarily love working out. I do. It's a means to an end sometimes, but it's not. I mean, like it's not my favorite. Figuring out ways to still show up, showing yourself, grace, kindness when you're not in the mood. That's all a part of it.
But it feels good after you're done with that workout, doesn't it?
Oh my God. So that's why I do it.
That's right.
I would say 99.9% of my
How good it's
motivation.
gonna feel when it's over.
Yeah, remembering that like you're gonna feel really good when this is done.
Sure, sure. Have you ever felt complacency creep in, right? Or just felt like maybe things are slipping a bit, and how did you reset?
Yes and no. I think there was a point in my career where my team, the Seattle Storm, it got to a point where we needed to rebuild. And I was like the elder statesman. I've now been that. I've held that title now for like 5 years. But I was like the oldest one. And the franchise was great in that they came to me and they were like, listen, like, we need to rebuild. We know what that means for you. And so we had conversations, and it wasn't that complacency kicked in, but it was a season where I knew we weren't trying to win. Like, I shouldn't even say trying. It's not really the way to express it. It was like we were starting over, we were building culture. We knew we weren't good enough to win a championship. And that was really the first time I was on a team where the conversation in the locker room wasn't about championship. And it was tough. There were days where it was like, wait, what's the point of the game? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what am I playing for? Why am I doing this? Like, we're not trying to win the championship. And it's actually one of my favorite seasons because it taught me a lot about other ways to have impact, other ways to feel satisfied in the world of athletics. And I really dove into, being a mentor or trying to be to some of the younger players, teaching them, what it was to be the face of a franchise. We have Brandon Stewart and Jewel Lloyd. So helping them become the face of the franchise, helping, like I said earlier, build the culture around what it was that the Seattle Storm was about, and just kind of like, diving into that aspect of it. And I had this whole other sense of fulfillment. So it kind of zapped that complacency right out. And now all of a sudden I did have something to play for.
Have you ever had it bubble up inside of you maybe in moments, right, where you're just kinda, like, feeling like, "Man, I'm going through the motions here a little bit." Like, just maybe in a moment in your life, in a game,
Like
in
a
a
private
practice.
moment.
Yeah, and you go, "Wait, this isn't me. I'm better than this. I got more inside me." And how do you unlock that when you see it creep in?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm lucky in that it hasn't happened that much. Like I said earlier, there's days where I get up and I do not want to work out. But I feel like what you're describing, to be honest, for me specifically, as like a 41-year-old athlete who I've been doing this for, 20 plus years, if I ever felt that way, I would know it was time to hang it up.
Mhm, mhm.
Like that to me would be a alarm. That would be a huge alarm. And again, it's not to say I don't have days where I don't feel like it, or even moments in a workout where I'm like, I mean, there are days where one little, I don't know, piece of advice, I don't even want to frame it that way. I definitely have learned to like be kind to myself. So there'll be days where I'm like in the middle of a workout and I want to be anywhere but there. And it's like I allow myself to feel that. And then some days I've like stopped workouts short. I've been like, I just can't do it today. And I kind of give myself that space because I know the next day, because I allowed myself to just kind of like feel that. I know the next day I'll probably get up and be super motivated. And they only happen every now and then. It's kind of like I equate it to like when I was a little kid, my mom had this rule where I was allowed to take one day off a semester from like not go to school. And it's kind of like that. Like sometimes you just need that day.
Yep. Yeah.
You just have to like give yourself space and like show yourself that kindness. It's like, it's okay if you're not motivated today. But yeah, so back to your question, if that crept in the way you're describing it, I feel like that would be my signal to get the hell out.
Yeah, I mean, but I love what you said. I mean, I think it's so true. We have to be, and I think particularly women, right? Gentle on ourselves, right? I mean, we want to make sure that one day doesn't turn into 5, right? Or a week or certainly
Yeah.
a month. But to give yourself a little grace, I mean, I would imagine that next day when you come in, you may actually amp it up a bit because you got a little
Oh,
bit
for
of,
sure.
yeah. So you
There's a
get,
little bit of guilt. There's a little bit of
yeah,
guilt sprinkled in.
right. So I'm going to take it up a notch the next day. You know, you were coached by Gino, of course, Ariama, and we had him on the show. What do you appreciate most about having been coached by him?
Oh, I mean, when you go to college and you're, 18 years old, these are very impressionable years. And I just feel so lucky that from age, whatever it was, 17, 18 to 21, I had somebody, both him and the entire staff, just had people who were really challenging. I respond well to that. When someone, challenges me, gets in my face, not so much now. I don't think I would love it now, but at that point in time, like,
right, you needed it.
it's not that you like it, but that I responded well to that. And what he does so well is he helps you by putting you in incredibly difficult situations, scenarios on the court. He helps you build your own confidence, and it's not a confidence that's dependent on anybody else. You're not a confident player because he's patting you on the back and telling you are. You're confident because you went on the court and, you were able to, win the day or win the drill or beat him or, like that's how he sets it up. And so you're able to develop this like internal confidence and this mental toughness. And I think those two things, because listen, I'll be the first to tell you, like, everybody struggles with confidence at some point. We all have. I definitely have. But to understand that you can't get that confidence from anyone else, it has to come from you. To get that lesson at an early age is probably what I'm most appreciative of. Because I've taken that with me. Even in the times where I am struggling, maybe my shot's off or, I have a bad stretch of games or a bad season. You go back to the drawing board and you're like, nah, this has to come from me. I can't even look for other people to help me. And then once you recognize and understand that, I think, I don't know, it's just a good base to start with.
I mean, confidence to me, like you say, it comes from action, right? It comes from doing. You can't think your way into confidence, right? You gotta do it. And you said, mental toughness. What are some of the things you do? Obviously, as an athlete that has done so many incredible things on the court and off, right? What's your approach to sharpening your mental toughness, your mental game?
There are certain things like meditation that I've added into my routine. I more so do it, definitely something I go to when I'm in season. I feel that I need to like quiet my brain and I just feel like that keeps me clear. And when you're clear headed, you can kind of get into those zones. You can kind of get into places and feel calm. And then there's just aspects of like, I don't know, for me, where I get a lot of my confidence from, and then I think in turn get the mental toughness, is taking care of myself. So taking care of my body, eating well, getting my workouts in, feeling like when I get to the WNBA season or when I get to the Olympics and it's time to play, I already did the work. You know what I mean? And this is actually this is actually something Coach Ariama used to say all the time. He used to say this all the time. He would use the analogy of like a test, right? And it's like, how do you feel when you've studied all night and you know the material? You walk into the room, you're like, boom, let's see the test, let's go. And then how do you feel when you crammed, you didn't get it in, you don't know it. You walk in and you're nervous as hell.
Right.
So
right.
I just always try to be like I did the work I needed to do. I checked all the boxes, and then you can just go play. And I think that like all of that kind of wraps into, this isn't actually like what mental toughness is per se, but for me, again, speaking on like bases, like foundations. Like these are the foundations. And I think it allows me to then go out there and play. And in those sticky moments, like in the moments when you could fold, you know what I mean? Like
Yep.
you just have all your ducks in a row where you're able to like overcome it.
As an athlete, you and at your level, you have so much coming at you, right? You've got lots of distractions, and you said, I do a really good job logistically of managing. Is there anything tactically you do to be really intentional about protecting your time, managing your energy? I always think we have to actually manage our energy more than our time. I think the best athletes in the world do that incredibly well. What are some systems, some tactics that you use to make sure that you have the energy for the moments that matter most?
I don't know that I'm great at this. This might be my weakness. I'm not good at saying no. If I will stretch myself super thin and then complain about it. I'm like, well, why'd you say yes to that? This is an area of growth for me for sure. But even within those moments, I think the one theme that keeps coming up is I know it's temporary. Again, like I know I'm going to get to the other side. So in those moments where I do feel stretched thin or like overwhelmed or whatever, I'm like, okay, you focus on it one at a time, and like you will get through it. So just take it like one task at a time. And when you do get to the other side, you can then like exhale. But no, do you have any tactics? I'm looking.
Well, actually, Sue, I wrote a book about it, so
Perfect.
yeah. I think it's incredibly important. I think the biggest, it was interesting. When I was a sports agent, I would manage for example, my golfer schedules, and I've always found it so interesting because we would look at the tour schedule for the following season. We would back into making sure that they had the kind of energy they needed for the majors and for the tournaments they played well in, and the golf courses that they consistently performed in. And then I sort of stepped out into the business world, and I was like, this is so fascinating, right? Like business people, they just accept one meeting after another. They show up and they're at these meetings and they're pissed and they're miserable. And then they get to that 4:00 pitch that's like the biggest pitch of the week, and they're completely smoked because
they're exhausted.
Yeah. And I'm like, this is so fascinating because to me, it's really aligning what matters most with our calendars, because we often, as human beings, sort of live by our calendars. And yeah, I'm going to send you a no button too, right? The no button is helpful.
The one thing that does help me is, and I've been this way since college, when you're like starting to become an adult, is balance. Like if I have a busy, hectic, week, whatever, if I can go to dinner with some friends, that resets me. Right. So there are things that I do know, and maybe it's like Megan and I just like, okay, tonight let's order in and like binge some Netflix. Boom, I'm reset. If I can get those pockets of reset and that gives me a balance, like my social life needs to be balanced. I love basketball. I love some of the work that I'm getting into now. Like I love it. It's fun. I'm passionate about it. But if I don't have a social balance, I'm all whacked out. In fact, like in college, part of my storyline is that I tore my ACL my freshman year, and I missed the whole season and the whole thing. And I didn't know this till like years later. But the coaches, like Coach Ariema, CD, Chris Daly, they called my parents, and they were like, "Hey, we're a little concerned about Sue." My parents were like, "What? Like, what's going on?" And this was as I was doing my ACL rehab. They're like, "She seems to be taking this too well." And they were like, "Oh no, that's just Sue." And it's like, again, like I love basketball, I love all these things, but it's not all. So it's like I have to have that balance. And that is what allows me to kind of protect my energy. Just making sure I get like doses of that.
And I think at some level, right, awareness around it. You just knowing that is huge. And then you can sort of look out and say, well, I got to make sure that I got some of these dinners, some of these Netflix binge nights on my calendar so that I can have the energy, right? That's awesome. I've heard you talk about Jordan. I've heard you talk about LeBron. You've been around some of the best athletes and coaches, right, in the game. If you had to sort of boil it down, what would you say is the mindset, right? The mindset of the best. What do you think it is that separates them from everybody else?
Oh, it's tough because everyone's a little different. You bring up some of those names, and I've told this story about Kobe Bryant like numerous times. We were at the Olympics, and it was 2008, and the Lakers had just lost to the Celtics in the finals in kind of like an epic fashion. I think they blew like a 20-point lead at one point, one of the games, and we're all just like hanging out in the player lounge, like we're drinking wine, we're playing cards, we're chilling, and he sees like in one of the newspapers, like a picture of Paul Pierce talking about how the Celtics won. And he like literally in that moment cut it out, folded it up, put it in his pocket. And he was like, motivation. He's like, this is my ammo for next year, And like, so for someone like Kobe, you could see like it never stops, like he's just constantly in that mind frame. I don't know that everybody's like that. Like, I don't think I'm like that. It really varies from person to person, player to player. I guess like a similarity could be just, I don't know, maybe like the competitive edge, whether it's playing cards, playing with my nieces or, playing in the WNBA finals. Like I'm trying to win.
Right.
And it's hard to shut that off. As I've gotten older, I've tried to shut it off in the social settings because then you just come across like an a-hole all the time. And I'm not trying to do that. Like my friends are like,
relax.
Can we chill? We're just playing cards. Like, can we relax? But yeah, I think it's hard to shut it off. So while I explained how Kobe was, I think it doesn't always present itself the way it did with that story. But I think for all of us, it's just something that never shuts off.
Which at some level is sort of this mindset of every day wanting to up the bar, every day trying to just get a little bit better. It is, I think, at some level what you're saying, but ensuring that you find that balance inside of that to chill a little bit, right? We all need to make sure that we have time to rejuvenate, right? I mean, it's like if you went into the gym tomorrow for a month and wanted to get, ripped, right? You can't, you got to come out and eat and sleep and rest, right? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, totally. But the one thing I'll add to that I have found is, I found that like I have to enjoy, well, maybe not enjoy. I found that I've had to like appreciate the marginal gain, like the small things. So, maybe it's like, okay, I didn't have, for a lot of people, finding time to work out can be really difficult. Obviously, for athletes, it's like our job, so we have to find the time. But even for me, like you just said, like sometimes the calendar gets full, it's hectic, it's crazy, and I don't have the energy for the 2-hour workout. And I've found, like I said, appreciation in, what, today I can only get a 20-minute Peloton in. I'm not going to beat myself up because that 20 minutes is better than 0 minutes. So just these like small marginal, I like to say that they're marginal gains because you know what? If you do a 20-minute Peloton ride, I'm just using that as an example,
Sure.
like, I don't know, 2 times a week for a month, that ends up being a lot of rides for someone. So it's like, even though it might not feel like a lot, it's better than nothing. And they do add up at the end. So just kind of like not beating yourself up if you can't get, like I said, the 2-hour crazy workout in, you can only do 30 minutes of Pilates. Better than nothing.
I think at some level, some people don't understand or realize at some level the grind that that you've gone through, right? That WNBA players go through, particularly somebody like you who's been out there so long. But greatness, right? The level that you have, achieved and the things that you've done, it requires a lot of sacrifice, right? A ton.
Oh, yeah.
Would you trade any of it or do anything differently if you were given the chance?
Absolutely not. And I'm saying this, I've missed birthdays, I've missed holidays, I've missed Christmases, I've missed weddings. I mean, name it. And I have missed it. And I've had to make the tough call. I mean, it started early too. I mean, I can't believe I'm going to tell this story, but when I was in high school, our AAU team was like competing to go to nationals. Nationals was like the biggest thing in the world. It was like where all the college coaches came to watch you. This was like the tournament. It was a week long. You played all these games. It meant everything to us. And we lost in the tournament to go. So it was a double elimination. So we had an opportunity. We had to like, we got upset. So the game was like on, Saturday morning, we lose. I was supposed to go, and this is even the funnier part, with my boyfriend at the time to his like junior prom. And I had to call him because we lost. We had to play that night. And I had to make a choice. It was the junior prom with him or playing this game. And it was a no-brainer. I mean, no offense to him, but it was like, well, I'm not missing this game. So you have to, and that was like the toughest phone call to make. So many times through my life, through all of our lives as athletes, we've had to make those decisions, those choices, make those sacrifices. And I 100% would not change any of it.
In just a second, we'll get back to the conversation. But first, I want to share some exciting news. My new TED Talk is out now, and it's all about the secrets to a champion mindset. For more than 15 years as a sports agent, I had a front row seat to peak performance. What was the difference between those who maximize their potential and those who don't? You think it's talent, but it's really drive. And the real magic happens when the drive to achieve is replaced by something more sustainable, the drive to get better. The best know this, that the view from the summit is nice, but it's the climb that makes it all worthwhile. Check it out. Watch it now at mollyfletcher.com/TED Talk. As a mother of 3 daughters, and my husband and I have been married for 20 years, and we have 3 daughters who have all played sports. But I think what's interesting about what you just said, what I'm hearing is that you made that call that you were going to play in that game. And I think sometimes, sports with parents today has changed a lot, right?
I bet.
Yeah. Right. So you said, I'm not going to prom. I'm playing in the game. Did your parents play a role in that decision at all?
I don't think so. I have no memory of that. Oh no, my parents, shout out to my parents. My parents were amazing. Like, always supported me, never pushed, always there if I needed help or advice. I'd like to say that my dad's like a brutally honest type of guy, which was great because I didn't get like smoke blow up my butt. You know what I mean?
Right. Sure.
So it's like with my dad, if I shot, like I said, 1 for 15, my dad would be like, you were terrible. And my mom was the type where she was like, if I shot 1 for 15, I got in the car. She'd be like, where do you want to go to dinner? Like, it didn't even matter to her. Like, the support was always there regardless. So I had like this great balance and I never felt pushed. I'm sure I talked to them about the decision, of course, but yeah, I was only like 16 or 15 or something. But no, that was my choice.
The WNBA has been at the forefront of activism and social change, and you've certainly been an incredible leader in that. When did you at some level pull back and go, you know what, we've got a voice here, right? I've got a voice here outside of basketball. When did that all bubble up inside of you?
Me personally or the league?
You and the league at some, yeah,
it's
right.
Actually at the same time anyway.
Sure.
The WNBA's journey from 2016, but even before that, but I think 2016 marked a moment because that was the year it started out with the Minnesota Lynx. So they were the first team in our league to protest, police brutality, to wear T-shirts to a game, to have a press conference talking about the issues that they wanted to talk about and what they felt important. Very quickly after that, a couple other teams did the same thing. We all followed suit. People started to kneel. That was like the summer. And this was before Colin Kaepernick knelt.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, Minnesota, the New York Liberty, the Phoenix Mercury, and then, like I said, the whole league followed suit. We all wore black shirts. We would do media blackouts where we only wanted to talk about, the police brutality that was happening in our world. And this was all like right before the Olympics, actually, that summer. So the football season hadn't even started yet. And I think what we found in that moment was a couple of things. One, the league, the WNBA, because we do have like different rules surrounding what clothes we can wear, like what gear we can wear on the court. So they were going to fine us for wearing these black T-shirts, and people started to take note of this. They started to see, what our league was about, and I think it was that year that really catapulted everything because we started to see like, wait a minute, all of these issues, like, I say this all the time, like people love to tell athletes to shut up and dribble. And as a female athlete, especially a member of the WNBA, I joke, it's kind of a joke when I say this, but I'm like, we would have loved to. We've never been allowed to do that.
Interesting.
We've literally never been allowed to just be athletes, to just be valued for our play on the court. We're just constantly judged for what we look like, everything we're not. So we can't dunk, right? And they're too manly, or it's just like, and it's no surprise. Our league is the numbers change year to year, but give or take, it's like 75 to 80% people of color. We just had a Lasia Clarendon's our first trans player. I don't have a number on this, but it's a league full of gay women. And what are all the issues in our society? And not just today, but it's like forever that have been, So we're people that are directly impacted by what goes on in our society. And so, like I say, I joke, we would have loved to have just shut up and dribble. We've never been given that chance. So when people ask, like, where did this come from? It's just always been there for us. This is our lives. This is the reality of it. And what 2016, to like bring it full circle, taught us, because in that moment we had a team here, a team there, a team there. And we were like, oh, wait, when we all came together and did it, wow, that was a loud voice. And I think that what you saw in 2020 in our bubble season and all the work we were able to get done, I think it was like the lessons we learned in 2016 and those couple years through. That's what made that bubble season, as strong as it was. We knew we could but we knew if we had this one voice, it would be way stronger. For me personally, I think I've grown as the league has grown in that way. It's like tough sometimes to admit it, but when I first got in the league at 21, it's like a different generation. And what I see now in these younger players is like, they don't give a F. They're just like, no, wait, we deserve this. No, wait, what? We're meant to have that. Where I feel like I was in a generation that was subconsciously taught to just be thankful for anything, right? Like, just be thankful you have a league. Like, just be thankful for what you're getting and never really push the envelope. And what I love about the generation now is they're pushing that envelope. And I kind of had to catch up to them. And that's really where I have found myself, my voice, my confidence in that. Also, of course, starting to date Megan, when Megan and I started dating was literally when she first knelt. Like, I don't even know if we had like a proper date until it was like after she knelt. So being in the same household of somebody who, obviously everybody knows where Megan stands, and just being able to have like great conversations. I've learned so much about myself, my beliefs. And I think in watching her speak her mind, use her voice, use her platform, it's definitely motivated me to do the same.
And that at some level has inspired you to start together. How did that come together?
Yeah, so that was born really, you got to give credit where credit's due. Alex Morgan saw there was a hole to fill, so to speak. Like, there was a lack. We all know the percentages. It's like female athletes get like 2 to 4% of, the media coverage, which is so insane. And then people wonder why they never see our games or why it's insane. And you have platforms that do amazing work like Uninterrupted, Players Tribune. But, I'm sure if you deep dive into those, it's I'm sure predominantly male, predominantly men getting that coverage. So Alex was like, nah, let's do something where it's just for women. And so she asked myself, and so it ended up being as it is now, which is Alex, myself, Chloe Kim, and Simone Manuel. And so the four of us were brought into this room by Alex, and it was like, all right, let's do this. And, we basically, like, for me personally, I know there was never anything dedicated to women growing up. I'm lucky in that I have a see it be it moment, which just happened by chance. I happened to go watch the national team play in 1995 as they were getting ready for the 96 Olympics. And I saw Jen Azey, and I was like, oh my God, we look alike. I could be that. But not everybody has that moment, especially somebody my age. So this was a way to put our money where our mouth was, right? Like, we all sit there and we complain about the lack of coverage. And now we're like, well, let's do something about it. And that's what we're together. Really, that's like where it stems from. And what it's grown into has just been so wonderful to watch. Like, it's going beyond just sport. It's about culture. It's just so much more. And we're able to highlight, those that don't always get that shine, especially people of color, especially women of color. So it's been amazing to watch it grow.
In your perfect world, right, if you could wave, a magic wand and you could see change in the way female athletes are covered by the media, right? If you could snap your fingers and wake up tomorrow, what would that look like?
The first and foremost is I would love for female athletes, just in general, to be covered, looked at, talked about in terms of their potential. I feel like a lot of times when women athletes are really women in general, it's well, what did you do, right? Like, like, prove to me you can have this job. Like, what have you done that proves to me you deserve this? And I think for men, it's like, ooh, they're showing a lot of potential. Let's give them that. I guess like an easy way to frame it is like endorsement deals, right? Like, there'll be a male athlete who's in college or high school, a shoe company
Right.
will, be like, okay, we're going to pay them millions of dollars because we see the potential. And I think on the women's side, what happens is, okay, how popular are they? Are they worth this money? And they're not looked at in terms of their potential. And I just would love for that to change in women's sports. And also, like, if we can put more value on the play on the court, that's always, I think, beneficial. I understand that as athletes, we're not just athletes. So of course there's all encompassing things, but that should always be like the first thing. But yeah, I think the potential is really, and we're starting to see it. I mean, I think some of these NIL deals that we're seeing in college for women's basketball players, you're starting to see like, okay, this is based on like what we think can happen. And that's like a very good sign.
How do you think about the way, I mean, obviously women's sports is covered in traditional media, and then the world that we live in where at some level everybody has their own network with their phones and social media. But how do you see that playing into the way women are paid? You spoke to endorsement deals, and I couldn't agree with you more, right? Like if women aren't covered at some level or exposed at a higher level, I mean, that drives the compensation. But how do you see that delineation at some level with the traditional media outlets, which is how we used to think about endorsement deals for athletes? But now everybody's got their own channel, right? And can create this at some level visibility for a brand through their channel, if you will. How do you think that plays out?
I think it's the best thing that happened to women's sports. I can look at myself. It's like the traditional ways in which we viewed like an athlete getting paid, right? Sometimes I feel like I use LeBron as like my example for everything. He's just such a great example because everybody knows him, everybody knows what he's doing. And so it's an easy one to relate to. Again, shout out LeBron. But yeah, you have LeBron, and like LeBron's got the deal with Nike, and he's got his deal with Sprite, and he's got his deal with, I think he had a deal with Kia. And I think traditionally that's how we view these, like, oh, you're only successful if you get these huge, big endorsement deals. And what social media has done, as you were saying, what, the empowerment for players to now control their brand, control their platform, it's opened up the door to so much more. And I think for women especially, because as the landscape looks right now, you know, there are a select few women. Like I've been fortunate enough to work with some amazing companies recently, like CarMax. There's been some fun commercials with CarMax I know a lot of people love, and that's been amazing. But it's only a couple of us doing that. So this is just giving so much opportunity for women to make careers out of being an athlete, not having to subsidize in other ways. And it also allows them to show who they are because they don't always get that chance because, here we go, right back to the lack of media coverage. And if we could change, if you can start to build these brands, it's an interesting juxtaposition as a female athlete between what society is telling me, right? Like society is telling me as a female athlete, particularly a WNBA player, that I'm no good. I'm not as good as the men. So what's the point? You don't get paid anything, yada, 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 which by the way, people have no idea the financials. So they don't know what they're talking about, but that's fine. That's like what they think, right? But then on this other side, you might do a deal with company XYZ that pays you, all this money. And then you've got all this stuff lined up and you're going to speaking engagements and people want to hear what you have to say. And so it's just this interesting. So I think what you were saying, it's like closing this gap. And hopefully that leads to the larger issues, which are the lack of media coverage, which are the lack of corporate sponsorship. Those are big issues for female sports, especially leagues. So hopefully like it'll all in the end, I hope it just continues to close that gap and it allows for change in those major areas.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it can increase exposure and of course, off the court money. We're going there again, Sue. What do you want your legacy to be? We're going deep again. What do you want your legacy to be?
My legacy. Interestingly enough, I think this was Diana Taurasi said this, and I was like, "Oop, love that line, feeling it." She basically was like, they don't really ask you about your legacy unless you've already done something. It's not really about what I want it to be. It's already written. Like it's already done. The one thing I remember, this was something Kobe Bryant, I think, is like famously quoted for, which was something along the lines of, when you speak about legacy, I think as an athlete, it is easy. And I think this was me for a while. I got caught up on like, I want to be a winner. It's all about the winning and win, win, win. And that'll be my legacy. And I'm glad that's a part of my legacy because, like I said earlier, it's addicting and I love the journey. And so when you actually achieve it, it's amazing. But like Kobe said, it's like, there's going to be another champion. there's going to be another MVP. Like I'm the WNBA assist record holder, like all-time assists. Someone's going to break that. Like that is life. This is how it is. Somebody will break that. So that's, your legacy is not just the points, the shots, the rebounds, the assists, this, the that, the winning. It's like these other things. And so what I'm proud of that, is already a part of my legacy is something like the CBA that I was on a member of the executive committee for that we signed a couple years ago. That was really like it's going to change how the WNBA works moving forward for the better, and it's going to help the business grow. And I'm glad that's part of my legacy, something I was able to pass on, if you will, and help with for the younger generation. I spoke about even with just like the Storm franchise, like wanting to help those younger players understand what it was to be the face, the culture, like all of those things. I think I'm more proud of that being part of my legacy than the winning.
What are some things you want to do when you do decide to hang it up?
Oh, the $1 million question. I don't know. I kind of like, I'm starting to get really into, I think this actually speaks to the whole, like, I like logistics and multitasking and da, 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 da. I really like the idea of producing, like through Together. I've had some taste of it. This might sound ridiculous, but when Megan and I did that IG live show, A Touch More, over the pandemic, which was like, obviously, what happened in the pandemic stays in the pandemic. It was wild. We were drinking. I'm like, I don't want to bring
what
it
happens
up,
in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Exactly. A lot of Moscow mules. I genuinely got into like the run of show of it all. Like I was planning those shows out, and I just think, now working with Together, I think it's really important that when these stories are told. So where I'm going with this is I want to continue to tell stories. I want to continue to make content around women athletes. Like I'm obviously incredibly passionate about that, particularly women's basketball. And I think how these stories are told are so important, because I've had my story told a lot. And sometimes I'll like sit down and watch it and I'm like, that's how that went. Like that's what they got from that.
Wow.
And so like, I'm just starting to see this kind of show up for me where I'm like something, content production, being involved in that way. It's like really starting to speak to me. Now this could just be like the flavor of the week. Maybe like I'll retire and I'll pop up as a coach or like something in a front office, or I don't know, maybe I'll be in front of the camera broadcasting. I don't know what the hell's going to happen, but I am starting to see that a little bit more.
Well, I think you're going to have plenty of choices, girl. And you're good at multitasking, so shit, maybe you'll do them all. Why not?
Why not? Then I got to worry about my time and my energy.
That's right. Exactly. I'm sending you my book.
Okay.
All right, Sue. So I'm going to hit you with rapid fire, and then we'll wrap this up. Thanks so much. This has been fun. So just fire back what comes up for you. So one thing on your bucket list.
I want to go to Amsterdam.
Last show you binge watched. Hacks?
Oh my God, Hacks.
Okay.
On HBO.
Okay.
Is so good.
Okay.
So good.
Have you watched Ted Lasso?
Yes.
So good. What's your biggest pet peeve?
I guess like moody people, like when you don't know what to expect. It's kind of tough.
Yeah, sure.
Like you can be moody, but it's just like when it's like, yeah. And sometimes that's out of their control. So I don't want to be hard on them.
No, who are you going to get that day, right? That's tough. No question. What's something people often get wrong about you?
I don't think people realize how shy I am.
Okay.
So it's not something right or wrong. I just think people would be really surprised by how shy I actually am.
If you had to boil your success down to 3 words, what would those 3 words be?
Winner. Winner and winner. No, I'm kidding. Winner, disciplined, and then probably competitive.
Yeah, love it. So the show's called Game Changer. So one last question. What game changer or who is a game changer who inspires you and why?
It's Megan.
Shocker.
And I know it's like almost too cliche, but it's very, for me, when I was growing up, the game changer was my older sister. And I always said growing up, like, oh my God, I was so lucky to have somebody in my house. She's 5 years older. To have somebody in my household who I could look up to, who I could follow, who was like determined and motivated in her own way. And I had this wonderful role model like every day to see. And I feel the same way about Megan. Like, how lucky am I that I get to share my life with somebody who is just so amazing, stands for so many important things, not afraid to use her voice, an incredible athlete, everything under the sun. And I'm just so lucky I get to learn from her every day.
That is awesome. I love it. Sue Bird, what a treat. Thank you for joining us. Congrats on your work with Together. I know it's going to make a huge impact on the world, so thank you. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Have a great time.
What an awesome conversation. Here are a few of my favorite takeaways from my conversation with Sue. Number one, fall in love with the process. Fall in love with the process. We hear this from the best all the time. Sue has won a lot, but she described winning, which I totally agree with. I talked about this in my TED Talk. Sue described winning as fleeting, a short-term achievement, which it is. What she's learned over her career, and she's won a ton, is that it's all about the journey. It's all about the process, right? It's not necessarily about the outcome. The process, that's what gets Sue out of bed every morning. Number two, go hard, but show yourself grace, right? We as human beings need to remember this, right? We can go hard and it's great, but show yourself a little grace, right? Professional athletes, they experience so many unbelievable highs and lows. And Sue talked about how to train yourself to get off that roller coaster, that emotional roller coaster. At some level, it's the art of figuring out how to grind it out and get after it when you know you need to, but also being able to throw a little grace your way also when you need it. Number three, bet on women, right? I love this. Bet on women. Whether it's helping negotiate the new CBA or launching a media platform like Together, I love how Sue recognizes the gift of her platform and uses it to create change. Bet on women. The time is now. Thanks, as always, for listening to Game Changers with Molly Fletcher. If you like the show, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts. There you can listen to previous episodes and leave us a review, which helps other people find out about the show. This episode was edited and sound designed by the team at Sound On Studios. You can find out more about their work at soundonsoundoff.com. Check it out. For more about me, visit mollyfletcher.com. Until next time, stay curious and be bold.